On his 69th birthday, Gregory Hale sat alone in his empty mansion, staring at his silent phone. For decades, he'd built a real estate empire worth millions, not just for himself, but for his family's future. Yet today, when it mattered most, not a single call came through. The grandfather clock in his study ticked past 9:45 p.m. Gregory's weathered hands trembled slightly as he typed a simple message to his family group chat. "I just want to say I'm sad no one remembered my birthday. I didn't expect much, just a call would have meant the world." He waited, watching those 3 dots appear and disappear. Finally, a reply from his son Daniel lit up the screen. "Dad, we need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore." The pain might have been bearable if that was all, but seconds later, a notification showed his daughter-in-law Marissa had liked the message. Gregory's chest tightened. The man who had sacrificed everything, who had paid for Daniel's college education, bought him his first house, and still covered his $30,000 monthly expenses, was being discarded like yesterday's newspaper. He set down his phone and walked to the window overlooking the city lights. Each one of those twinkling dots represented a building deal he'd closed, a property he'd developed, a risk he'd taken. All to secure his family's future, and this was his reward. Gregory didn't slam his fist against the wall. He didn't call back in rage. Instead, he took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. If you believe family should be built on respect, not entitlement, then this story will show you exactly what happens when ungrateful children mistake a father's kindness for weakness. Because what Gregory did next wasn't just about teaching his son a lesson, it was about showing him the true cost of those 8 cruel words sent on a birthday night. By morning, Daniel would learn that a single text message could cost him access to a $30 million family fortune. And by the time this story ends, you'll understand why sometimes the kindest thing a parent can do is let their child face the consequences of their own actions. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. 10 years earlier, Gregory had buried his wife after a battle with cancer that left him a widower and single father. While most men might have crumbled under the weight of grief, Gregory channeled his pain into purpose, building his real estate company into an empire while raising Daniel alone. "I want you to have everything I didn't," Gregory told his son repeatedly, and he meant it. When Daniel wanted to attend an expensive private university, Gregory wrote the check without hesitation. When Daniel graduated and needed a job, Gregory created a vice president position for him at the company. When Daniel fell in love with Marissa and wanted to impress her, Gregory provided the down payment on a $2.5 million Tribeca penthouse. "Dad, we found the perfect place," Daniel had said, showing him pictures of the luxury apartment. "But the down payment is $500,000. Gregory remembered signing that check, remembered Daniel's grateful hug. "I'll pay you back someday," his son had promised. That day never came. Instead, what followed was a pattern that Gregory tried to ignore. Daniel would make reckless financial decisions, buying a Range Rover he couldn't afford, investing in Marissa's boutique that hemorrhaged money, taking lavish vacations while complaining about being broke. Each time, Gregory stepped in to help, and each time, Daniel's resentment grew. "You're controlling me with your money," Daniel accused during one heated argument. "I'm a grown man. I don't need you micromanaging my life." Gregory had tried to explain, "I'm not controlling you, son. I'm trying to teach you how to handle wealth responsibly." But Daniel couldn't or wouldn't see the difference. The truth was, Daniel wanted the freedom to make his own choices without the responsibility of facing his own consequences. He wanted independence without self-reliance. He wanted his father's money without his father's wisdom, and Marissa only made things worse. "Your dad owes you this money," she would whisper. "It's practically your inheritance anyway." Gregory overheard her say this once at a family dinner and felt his heart crack. But he said nothing, hoping time would mature his son and daughter-in-law. Now, staring at that birthday text message, Gregory realized his greatest mistake. By protecting Daniel from failure, he'd prevented him from growing up. Tomorrow, that would change. Tomorrow, Daniel would learn what real independence felt like. Gregory didn't respond to his son's cruel texts. He didn't call in tears or send angry messages. Instead, he took 3 decisive actions that would shake Daniel's comfortable world to its core. At exactly 8 a.m. the next morning, Gregory called his financial advisor, Martin. "I need you to make some immediate changes," Gregory said, his voice calm but firm. "What kind of changes?" Martin asked. "First, freeze Daniel's access to the family trust, all of it." Martin paused. "Gregory, that's over $12 million. Are you sure?" "Second," Gregory continued as if he hadn't heard, "cancel the monthly allowance, effective immediately." "The $30,000? But that pays for their mortgage, the kids' private school." "And third," Gregory's voice didn't waver, "remove Daniel's name from the deed to the Hampton Beach house I was planning to gift him next month." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Martin asked, "May I ask what happened?" Gregory looked at the birthday card he'd bought himself, sitting unopened on his desk. "I'm not punishing my son. Martin, I'm finally allowing him to live the independent life he claims to want." After hanging up, Gregory blocked Daniel and Marissa's numbers, not out of spite, but because he knew what would come next. The panic, the backpedaling, the sudden discovery of their love for him when the money stopped flowing. Some might call Gregory's actions harsh, but ask yourself, is it harsh to stop enabling someone who takes you for granted? Is it cruel to let an adult face the reality of their own choices? Gregory wasn't trying to hurt his son. He was trying to save him from a lifetime of entitlement that would eventually destroy any chance at genuine happiness. As he sat in his study that afternoon, Gregory felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. The weight of constantly rescuing his son had lifted. Whether Daniel sank or swam now would be entirely up to him, but Gregory had no idea just how quickly his phone would start ringing. The first call came at 6:30 a.m. the next morning. Gregory's phone lit up with Daniel's name, but thanks to the block, it went straight to voicemail. By noon, Gregory's phone showed 50 missed call attempts. By evening, that number had climbed to 109. The voicemails piled up, each more desperate than the last. "Dad, please call me back. There must be some mistake with the bank." "Dad, our cards were declined at dinner last night. It was humiliating." "Dad, please, it was just a bad night. We didn't mean it. You can't just cut us off like this. Think of the kids." Even Marissa, who had always kept her distance from Gregory, left messages. "Gregory, this is completely unfair. Daniel works hard for your company. We have bills to pay. You can't do this to us." And finally, through tears, "Please call us back. We're sorry about your birthday." Gregory listened to each message, his heart heavy, but his resolve firm. The same people who claimed they needed space from him just days ago were now frantically trying to close that space, not because they missed him, but because they missed his money. On the third day, Gregory received a call from Daniel's private school headmaster. "Mr. Hale, I'm calling about your grandchildren's tuition payment. It seems there's been an issue with the funds." "There's no issue," Gregory replied calmly. "I'm no longer covering their education expenses. Their parents will need to handle that now." "I see," the headmaster said, clearly uncomfortable. "Well, I should inform you that without payment by Friday, the children cannot return next week." Gregory thanked him and hung up. This was the hardest part, knowing his grandchildren would be affected. But he reminded himself, Daniel and Marissa earned 6 figures at their jobs. They could afford a perfectly good public school if they adjusted their spending habits. By the end of the week, Gregory received a text from an unknown number, Daniel using Marissa's mother's phone. "Dad, we're facing eviction. Please talk to us. What do you want from us?" Gregory stared at the message for a long time. What did he want? An apology? Respect? Or something deeper? A fundamental change in his son's character? He typed a simple reply. "I want you to learn the difference between being independent and being alone. Right now, you're experiencing the latter." Then he set down his phone and waited for what would happen next. While Daniel and Marissa frantically tried to regain access to Gregory's fortune, an unexpected revelation deepened the wound in Gregory's heart. It happened during a charity golf tournament, where Gregory found himself paired with Richard Donovan, a fellow developer who'd done business with his company for years. "Haven't seen Daniel lately," Richard mentioned casually as they walked to the next hole. "Everything okay with you two?" Gregory gave a non-committal answer, but Richard continued. "Look, I shouldn't say anything, but as your friend, I think you should know what's been going around." Gregory stopped walking. "What do you mean?" Richard looked uncomfortable. "For years now, Daniel and Marissa have been talking about you at industry events. Calling you controlling, saying you're emotionally manipulative. Last month at the Henderson Gala, I overheard Marissa telling people you were stingy despite your wealth." Gregory's grip tightened on his club. "Go on." "They've been telling everyone your money should have been handed down already, that you're holding on to it to control them." Richard shook his head. "I never believed it, knowing how much you've done for them." That evening, Gregory made calls to 3 other business associates. Each confirmed the same story with different details. At the country club, Daniel had complained about Gregory being stuck in the past. At a charity dinner, Marissa had joked that they were waiting for the old man to finally share the wealth. For a decade, while Gregory had been signing checks and supporting their lifestyle, his son and daughter-in-law had been mocking him behind his back. The birthday text wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was the truth slipping out after years of festering resentment. Gregory sat in his study that night, looking at old family photos. In each one, he'd provided the house they posed in, the vacation they enjoyed, the clothes they wore. Yet somehow, he was the villain in their story. That night, Gregory made a decision that would change the course of his family's future forever. If they saw him as nothing but a bank account, then he would show them exactly what happens when that account closes permanently. 3 days later, Gregory sat across from Eleanor Winters. his estate attorney for over 20 years. "Are you absolutely certain about these changes?" Eleanor asked, reviewing the documents before her. "This is quite a departure from your previous arrangements." Gregory nodded. "I've never been more certain of anything." The changes were significant. Previously, Daniel stood to inherit nearly 80% of Gregory's $30 million estate. The new will reduce that to a modest $500,000 trust, enough to prevent destitution, but not enough to fund a lifetime of luxury. The bulk of Gregory's fortune would now go to a foundation supporting underprivileged students pursuing careers in construction and real estate development, young people who would value the opportunity Gregory's money could provide. "And you're sure about this clause?" Eleanor pointed to a specific paragraph. "Absolutely," Gregory confirmed. "Daniel is to believe he remains the primary beneficiary until after my passing. Only then will the true contents of the will be revealed." Eleanor sighed. "It's unusual, but legal. I'll file everything today." As Gregory signed the documents, he felt no anger, no desire for revenge. This wasn't about punishing Daniel. It was about ensuring his life's work went to those who would appreciate it. "There's one more thing," Gregory said, sliding an envelope across the desk. "This letter is to be given to Daniel along with the will. It explains everything." What Gregory didn't tell Eleanor was that the letter contained more than explanations. It contained evidence, screenshots of the birthday text, records of every payment he'd made for Daniel's family over the years, and testimonials from business associates about the things Daniel and Marissa had said behind his back. The letter ended with words Gregory had carefully considered. "I didn't disinherit you because you hurt me. I disinherited you because you never understood the difference between being given something and earning it. My hope is that by the time you read this, life will have taught you that lesson." Gregory left the attorney's office feeling lighter. The future was now in motion. But what would happen next would surprise everyone, including Gregory himself. 3 weeks after the financial cutoff, Gregory's security system alerted him to someone at his front gate. The camera showed Daniel standing there, looking noticeably different. His designer clothes replaced by a simple button-down shirt, his normally perfect hair slightly disheveled. Gregory buzzed him in, curious about what approach his son would take. Daniel entered the living room with his head bowed, a posture of humility Gregory hadn't seen in years. "Dad," he began, his voice soft, "I came to apologize." Gregory gestured for him to sit, but remained silent. "What I said on your birthday was wrong," Daniel continued. "We were stressed. Marissa was upset about some boutique issues. I shouldn't have taken it out on you." The words sounded rehearsed, but Gregory nodded anyway. "I appreciate you saying that." Daniel leaned forward, eyes brightening with hope. "So, can we put this behind us? Start fresh?" "What exactly does start fresh mean to you, Daniel?" The question seemed to catch his son off guard. "Well, go back to how things were. Family dinners, seeing the grandkids." Gregory waited, knowing what was coming next. Daniel cleared his throat. "And maybe we could talk about reinstating the allowance? Things have been difficult. The mortgage is 2 months behind, and the kids might have to leave their school." There it was. Not reconciliation, just financial desperation. "So this visit isn't about missing your father," Gregory said quietly. "It's about missing your father's money." Daniel's face flushed. "That's not fair. We do miss you, But we also have real problems now. Problems you created by cutting us off without warning. Without warning? Gregory's voice remained calm. Daniel, I've been warning you for years about your spending habits, about taking responsibility. You chose not to listen. So what? This is some kind of lesson? Daniel stood up, anger replacing his practiced humility. Watching your grandchildren get pulled from their school is your idea of teaching. Gregory looked his son directly in the eyes. No, Daniel. This is what independence looks like when you haven't earned it. You wanted space from me, remember? Space includes space from my financial support. Daniel stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Gregory sat alone, his heart heavy. He'd hoped for genuine remorse, for understanding. Instead, he got confirmation that his son still hadn't learned the fundamental lesson. Respect can't be bought, and family isn't a transaction. The family conflict couldn't stay private forever. Within days, Gregory began receiving calls from relatives and friends. Gregory, Daniel told us you've completely cut him off, his sister-in-law Margaret said. Over a text message? That seems extreme. He says you're punishing the grandchildren to get back at him, his cousin Robert added during another call. That doesn't sound like you. The narrative spreading through their social circle painted Gregory as a vindictive father, wielding his wealth as a weapon against a son who simply wanted independence. Gregory listened to these accusations without defending himself until the annual family reunion at his brother Thomas's lake house. As Gregory arrived, he noticed the hushed conversations that stopped when he approached. Marissa sat with a group of cousins, clearly mid-story, her eyes red as if she'd been crying. During dinner, Thomas finally addressed the elephant in the room. Gregory, maybe it's time you and Daniel work this out. Family is too important for these kinds of grudges. The table fell silent. All eyes turned to Gregory. I agree family is important, Gregory said calmly. He pulled out his phone. That's why I was hurt when I received this on my birthday. He passed his phone around, showing the screenshot of Daniel's text and Marissa's like. And for context, Gregory continued, this came after I paid $30,000 that month for their expenses, including the mortgage on a home I provided the down payment for. The silence around the table deepened. I'm not punishing Daniel, Gregory explained. I'm allowing him to live by his own choice, a life with space from me. That space includes space from my financial support. Marissa abruptly left the table. Several relatives looked down at their plates, uncomfortable with this new perspective. Later that evening, Gregory overheard his niece Jennifer confronting Marissa. You told us Gregory abandoned them without reason. You never mentioned that text. Word spread quickly. Within weeks, the narrative shifted. What had been seen as a father's cruelty was now recognized as a son's entitlement. Daniel and Marissa found themselves increasingly isolated, their invitations to social events dwindling. The sympathy they'd counted on turned to whispered judgment. But the real crisis was just beginning to unfold in their financial life. 4 months after the financial cutoff, Gregory received a call from his brother Thomas. You might want to know what's happening with Daniel, Thomas said, his voice heavy. Marissa's boutique went bankrupt last week. They couldn't make the lease payments. Gregory absorbed this news silently. That's not all, Thomas continued. They're facing foreclosure on the penthouse. And Marissa, She's taken the kids to stay with her parents in Connecticut. She left him? Gregory asked, surprised despite himself. She's calling it a break to figure things out. But Daniel's a mess. He's been sleeping on a friend's couch. Gregory thanked his brother for the information and hung up. He felt no satisfaction in his son's suffering, only sadness that it had come to this. 3 days later, Gregory's security system alerted him to someone at the gate. The camera showed Daniel standing in the rain, no umbrella, his clothes soaked through. This time, when Daniel entered the house, there was no practiced speech, no false humility. His eyes were red-rimmed, his shoulders slumped in genuine defeat. "Dad," his voice cracked, "I've lost everything." Gregory guided his son to the kitchen and made him coffee, waiting as Daniel gathered himself. "The bank took the penthouse. Marissa's gone. My credit cards are maxed out." Daniel stared into his cup. "I've been sleeping in my car the last 2 nights. Gregory felt the pull of fatherly instinct, the urge to rescue, to fix everything. But he remembered the years of entitlement, the birthday text, the things said behind his back. "What do you want from me, Daniel?" he asked quietly. Daniel looked up, his eyes hollow. "I don't know. Money, I guess. A place to stay. Help getting Marissa back." Gregory shook his head slowly. "I can't give you those things." "Can't or won't?" Daniel's voice hardened slightly. "Both," Gregory replied. "You wanted space, Daniel. Now you have it. This is your opportunity to rebuild, not with my fortune, but with your own strength." Daniel's face crumpled. "So that's it? You're just going to watch me drown?" Gregory stood up and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "No. I'm going to watch you learn to swim. There's a difference." Daniel left without another word, the door closing quietly behind him. Gregory stood at the window, watching his son's defeated walk to his car, a far cry from the luxury Range Rover he once drove. For the first time in this ordeal, Gregory questioned if he was doing the right thing. The next 6 months transformed Daniel in ways Gregory could never have engineered. Through family updates, Gregory learned that Daniel had found a job as a leasing agent at a competing real estate firm, starting at the bottom, something he'd never done before. He'd rented a small 1-bedroom apartment in a modest neighborhood, a stark contrast to his former Tribeca penthouse. Gregory drove by occasionally, watching from a distance as his son left for work in the morning. Dressed in off-the-rack suits instead of his former designer wardrobe. One evening, Gregory received a text from an unknown number. "I got my first commission check today. Not much, but it's money I earned myself. Thought you might want to know. Daniel." Gregory smiled at the message, but didn't reply. This was Daniel's journey now. 3 weeks later, Gregory was having lunch at his usual restaurant when he spotted Daniel at another table, meeting with clients. His son was animated, engaged, showing property photos with genuine enthusiasm. When the clients left, Gregory approached. "You look good," he said simply. Daniel seemed startled, then composed himself. "Thanks. Down 20 pounds since I started making my own lunches." An awkward silence fell between them. "How are the kids?" Gregory finally asked. "They're okay. In public school now. Actually, they seem to like it better. More diverse, they say." Daniel hesitated. "Marissa and I are trying to work things out. She's got a job at a department store. It's been humbling for both of us." Gregory nodded. "And how are you, really?" Daniel considered the question carefully. "Honestly, some days I hate you for doing this to us." He paused. "Other days, I realize you didn't do this to us. We did it to ourselves. Those are the harder days." Gregory felt a glimmer of hope at his son's self-awareness. "I should get back to work," Daniel said, standing. "Commissions don't earn themselves." As Daniel walked away, Gregory noticed something different in his posture, a new dignity that comes not from wealth or position, but from self-reliance. For the first time since this began, Gregory felt certain he'd made the right choice. His son was finally growing up. But the journey toward reconciliation had only just begun, and the hardest tests still lay ahead. 8 months into Daniel's new life, Gregory received a surprise visitor at his home. When he opened the door, he found Marissa standing there, looking nothing like the polished, entitled woman he remembered. Her designer clothes were replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her manicured nails now plain, her expression humble. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Gregory hesitated but stepped aside. This was the woman who had liked the message that cut him out of their lives, who had whispered in Daniel's ear for years about his stingy father-in-law. "I won't take much of your time," Marissa said, sitting stiffly on the edge of the sofa. "I came to apologize." Gregory raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. "I encouraged Daniel's worst instincts," she admitted. "I pushed him to demand more from you. I complained about your involvement while happily spending your money." She looked down at her hands. "It took losing everything to realize how warped my thinking was." "What changed?" Gregory asked. "Working retail for minimum wage changed me," she said with a bitter laugh. "Watching my children share a bedroom instead of having their own wing, clipping coupons instead of swiping platinum cards." She looked up, meeting his eyes directly, but mostly seeing Daniel change. He works so hard now. He comes home exhausted but proud. He's become the man I actually wanted to marry, not the entitled boy he was before. Gregory felt his defenses softening despite himself. "I'm not here asking for money," Marissa continued. "I'm here because Daniel misses you. He's too proud to say it, but he does. And the kids ask about their grandpa." She stood to leave. "Just think about reaching out to him. Not to rescue us, but because we're family. Real family now, not just ATM cards with expectations." As Gregory closed the door behind her, he felt something unexpected. Respect for the woman who had once been the architect of his exclusion from their lives. Perhaps there was hope for genuine healing after all. 2 weeks after Marissa's visit, Gregory received a text message from Daniel. "The kids have a school play this Friday at 7. They'd like you to come if you're free. No demands, no financial requests, just a simple invitation back into their lives." Gregory sat in the auditorium of the public elementary school, feeling oddly out of place among the working parents in casual clothes. He spotted Daniel and Marissa several rows ahead, their heads close together as they whispered and pointed at the stage. When his 8-year-old granddaughter Emma appeared as a tree in the forest-themed production, Gregory felt his chest tighten with emotion. He'd missed nearly a year of their lives. After the performance, the family gathered awkwardly in the school hallway. "Grandpa, you came." Emma threw her arms around his waist while 6-year-old Liam hung back shyly. "I wouldn't have missed it," Gregory said, his voice rough with feeling. Daniel cleared his throat. "We're going for ice cream. Nothing fancy, just the place down the street. Would you like to join us?" The ice cream shop was crowded and noisy, nothing like the exclusive restaurants they once frequented. They squeezed into a small booth, the children chattering excitedly about their performance. When Daniel went to pay, Gregory noticed him counting out cash carefully from a worn wallet. He made no move to help. Outside, as they prepared to part ways, Daniel spoke quietly, while the children showed Marissa a poster in the window. "This isn't easy for me," he admitted. "Part of me is still angry, but the kids need their grandfather and I—" He paused, struggling with the words. "I need my father, not his money, just him." Gregory felt the wall around his heart crumbling. "I'm here now." "Can we have dinner next week?" Daniel asked. "Just us. There are things I need to say to you." As Gregory drove home, he realized something profound had shifted. The invitation wasn't about reconciling with his wallet. It was about reconciling with him as a person. The bridge between them was fragile, built on new and untested foundations. But for the first time, Gregory believed it might actually hold. 1 year after the birthday text that changed everything, Daniel sat across from Gregory at a modest diner, a far cry from the five-star restaurants they once frequented. "I have a business idea," Daniel said, sliding a folder across the table. "I'm not asking for money," he added quickly. "Just your opinion." Gregory opened the folder to find a detailed business plan for a small property management company focusing on affordable housing developments. "I've learned a lot this past year," Daniel explained. "There's a huge need for quality management in lower-income properties. Most companies treat these buildings as afterthoughts." Gregory reviewed the numbers, impressed by the research and realistic projections, so different from Daniel's previous half-baked investment schemes. "This could work," Gregory said. "The startup costs are reasonable." Daniel nodded. "I've saved about half of what I need. The bank might loan me the rest based on my sales record this year." "And if they don't?" Gregory asked, testing him. "Then I keep saving until I have enough," Daniel replied without hesitation. "I'm not in a rush. Doing it right matters more than doing it fast." Gregory felt a surge of pride at his son's maturity. This was the lesson he'd always tried to teach: patience, planning, earning success rather than expecting it. "I could introduce you to some contacts in that sector," Gregory offered. "No money, just connections you can develop yourself." Daniel's eyes lit up. That would be incredible. Over the next 6 months, Gregory watched as Daniel built his business from scratch. There were setbacks and frustrations, but Daniel faced each challenge with a determination Gregory had never seen in him before. When Daniel signed his first management contract, he invited Gregory to the small celebration at his apartment. The furnishings were modest, the food homemade, but the accomplishment was genuine. "To earning it," Daniel toasted, raising his glass to his father. Gregory raised his in return. To earning it. In that moment, Gregory realized he was finally giving Daniel his true inheritance, not money or property, but the values and wisdom to build something meaningful on his own. And that was worth far more than the millions he'd once planned to leave his son. 5 years passed. Daniel's company grew steadily, never becoming an empire like his father's, but providing a comfortable living for his family and jobs for 20 employees. Gregory, now in his mid-70s, faced his own challenge when doctors diagnosed him with advanced pancreatic cancer. 6 months, maybe a year with treatment, the oncologist explained gently. Gregory accepted the news with the same quiet dignity that had defined his life. He put his affairs in order and prepared for what was to come. What he didn't expect was Daniel's response. "Move in with us," his son insisted during a visit to the hospital. "We have the guest room ready. The kids want you close." "I don't want to be a burden," Gregory protested. Daniel shook his head firmly. "You were there for me my entire life, even when I didn't appreciate it. Let me be there for you now." Gregory moved into Daniel and Marissa's modest suburban home the following week. The guest room had been transformed with his favorite reading chair, family photos, and a view of the backyard garden. As his strength declined, Gregory witnessed something remarkable. His son rising to meet each challenge with compassion and without complaint. Daniel drove him to chemotherapy appointments, sitting patiently for hours in uncomfortable hospital chairs. He managed Gregory's medications, prepared special meals when nausea made eating difficult, and stayed up through long nights when pain kept Gregory awake. One evening, as Daniel helped him back to bed after a difficult day, Gregory asked the question that had lingered in his mind. "Do you ever regret that I cut you off financially?" Daniel considered the question carefully. "I regret that it took something so extreme for me to grow up. I regret the years I wasted being entitled and ungrateful." He adjusted Gregory's pillows. "But no, I don't regret what you did. It was the best thing that could have happened to me." Gregory reached for his son's hand. "I'm proud of the man you become." Daniel's eyes glistened. "I learned from the best." As Gregory drifted to sleep, he felt at peace. The legacy he would leave behind wasn't measured in dollars, but in the character of his son. 3 weeks after Gregory's peaceful passing, Daniel, Marissa, and the children gathered in Eleanor Winter's law office for the reading of the will. Daniel sat quietly, holding Marissa's hand, his grief still fresh but tempered by the meaningful months they'd shared caring for Gregory. "Before we begin," Eleanor said, sliding an envelope across her desk, "your father asked that you read this letter first." Daniel opened it with steady hands, unfolding several pages of his father's distinctive handwriting. "My son," he read aloud, his voice catching slightly, "if you're reading this, I've completed my journey. I hope in our final days together you understood how deeply I loved you despite our difficult times." Daniel continued reading as Eleanor and Marissa listened silently. "What you don't know is that after your birthday text 5 years ago, I rewrote my will. I was hurt and angry, and I made a decision to drastically reduce your inheritance." Daniel looked up, surprised. Eleanor nodded for him to continue. "The original will left you only $500,000 of my $30 million estate. The rest was designated for a foundation to help underprivileged students, young people who would value the opportunity my money could provide." Marissa gasped softly, but Daniel kept reading, his expression unchanged. "I never told you this because I wanted to see if our reconciliation was genuine or financially motivated. I needed to know if you had truly changed." Daniel turned to the final page. "You have exceeded every hope I had for you, my son. You built a life of meaning through your own efforts. You cared for me with love and dignity in my final days. You became the man I always knew you could be." Daniel's voice broke as he read the last lines. "Because of this, I revised my will again 1 month before my diagnosis. Eleanor has the details. But know this, whatever you receive, you've earned it, not through entitlement, but through growth, character, and love. This is my final gift to you. With pride and love, Dad." Eleanor opened the official documents, Your father left you $5 million, Daniel, enough to secure your family's future without removing the drive and purpose you found. The remaining $25 million establishes the Hale Family Foundation, with you as chairman, supporting both education for underprivileged youth and affordable housing initiatives. Daniel sat back, overwhelmed. It wasn't the full fortune he might once have expected, but it was a meaningful trust in his judgment and character. He found the perfect balance, Daniel said quietly. Enough to help us, but not enough to change us back into who we were. As they left the office, Daniel looked up at the clear blue sky. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered, "for knowing exactly what I needed, even when I didn't." The greatest inheritance Gregory left wasn't measured in millions, but in the lessons that transformed his son from entitled to earned. If you've ever had to make a difficult choice between giving someone what they want versus what they need, share your thoughts below. Was Gregory right to cut his son off financially? Would you have done the same?